Hello and welcome to the Astral Guide. I'm Shireen, and in this dream series I am going to be talking about deities and God figures and like things like archangels showing up in our dreams, in our astral, and to pay serious attention when they do or if they do, because if you see something as big as God, the devil, Jesus, whatever, showing up in your astral, it's gonna change your life. Your life is gonna change. It's just, there's no doubt about it. So the first example I have of this is quite some time ago. What I saw was, and I wasn't very well at the time. I was noticing that my health was declining. I saw that I was on my road in the dream. Again, a road is the destination that you're currently on. And toward, like, heading out of my estate, just at the end of the road, there was a cage. And this cage was rusty. And it looked like something that belonged to an old animal shelter. You know, something really worn down and very neglected looking. And it was big enough to fit in it. And as I was looking at this cage, I looked up and I saw Jesus. Jesus appeared. And he opened the cage door and he said, "It's your turn. You have to get in." And I did. I got in, and as I got into the cage, he started to walk away from me. And he just looked back over his shoulder and he just said, "Don't worry, you're going to be okay." And that was very close to a massive, huge change in my life. I'll never forget that dream because of what happened after it. And I was spinning rings around this county that we're in, where I live. I was a professional belly dancer. I was a hairdresser. I was putting on events. I was doing all sorts of stuff. And I just got hit with this illness. And life took a real turn on me, and it took a real turn on me really fast. And I had absolutely no control over what was happening. It was complete. It was destined. It was destined. It was part of my destiny. And I realized that I began to get symptoms of an illness that my mother had. And we were both trapped in the same cycle of illness for 20 years straight, basically. And there was a multitude of things. Now, this is a personal dream, and this is personal stuff I'm sharing here. So it was monumental that I saw that. I'd say within the 6 months after seeing that dream, I was possibly bedbound for many years. And like I said, I was fit as a fiddle. If I was a car, I would have been a Ferrari. I was that fit. I was that healthy. I was partying hard. I was working hard. I was, doing my music. I was doing everything. And I was completely snatched out of the matrix. And the rug was completely pulled from under me. And it was really hard. And it's still a bit of a journey out of that cycle. But I've come leaps and bounds, and I don't give that cycle energy. I'm focused on the present and the now and what I'm doing now and getting back into the swing of things. And my mother had seen Jesus appear to her as well, but I'm going to let her speak about that herself. So the rusty cage, obviously, I mean, it's self-explanatory, That's what it was, in a sense. Like, physically, it was agony. It was every kind of pain, illness imaginable. I went through it. Literally everything you can imagine, I went through it. And I just kept on remembering, that the cage has a door. There's always a way out. There's always a way out. And that door will open when it's supposed to open and when I'm ready for it to open. And I was speaking to somebody about this, a family member, recently, because it's not just the physical trauma of what happened. When you're used to being independent and you're used to being driven and, using your talents and your gifts and being sociable, going from one complete contrast to another. And it was a complete shock to the system. I was judged constantly by people. Nobody would believe me, or, as if I was making up. Some of it I was making up or something, But throughout all of that, I was saying to somebody, I was meant to be somewhere else. I was meant to be not just inward. It was like being like a monk in a cave. That's how my mother put it. She said it's like being like one of those monks in a cave where you have nowhere to go but inside yourself, because you can't do anything. You're locked in pain, literally. You're locked in isolation. You're locked in misunderstandings. You're locked in judgment. So it was a complete obliteration of the ego, of all levels of the ego. And I've been quite a humble person most of my life. I mean, we all have ego, but this was like the experiences that I went through spiritually and in the dream field and the astral field, and even with other people during this, never mind before it. Before it, I was always tuned into this stuff since I can remember. But during the isolation, I fine-tuned my gifts on another level that I didn't even realize I was doing as much as I was. And we tend to find that out later on when we're speaking to people and we're watching our progress and we're paying attention to what's being said in the subconscious, what's being manifested, and, like I said, the mirror effect between the above and below. So that was the first time I saw Jesus Christ. And I have other stories. I have other stories about my history and how I have different upbringing, Iranian and Irish. So I'm trying to be respectful and not, say anything that, look, basically, people in Ireland many years ago, they were God-fearing people to a fault, and I'm not judging anybody. People do things based off their good intention, not always, and I have to say, like, this wasn't 100% good intention, but it was all they knew, right? So I was actually baptized against my will, is the best way I can put it, by a member of my family. And I left school very early because I saw right through the system quite early, and I was like, I'm out of here. I went and I started doing a hairdressing degree at 14. I had to lie about my age. And I started to do that seriously at 15. But before that, in school, I refused to make my confirmation in school. There was 2 people in secondary school. We call it that, secondary school in Ireland. There was me and one other person, and I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And everyone's like, Shireen, come on, do it. You're going to get lots of money and lots of clothes and this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, if that's the only reason you're doing it, you're making a mistake anyway, So I always kind of held my ground on my beliefs, and I ended up getting an A+ for that. my teacher gave me an A+ for religion, for standing up for myself, and for for not following the herd, basically, you know, which I don't tend to, I've never tended to do anyway. And most people who are here watching this, I'm pretty sure, are the same. We're the black sheep of the family. Um, in a sense, you know, we're a bit different. You know, we see things a bit different. We're more probably sensitive and open to things that people might consider taboo or whatever. And if you're a black sheep of the family, well, fair play to you. That's all I can say, because your time is now. Black sheep unite. Black sheep matter. Anyway, so that was the first time I saw Jesus.